9:33, Todd Jeffries and Don Pryor.
Hi there.
Let's go to the phones. Susan checking in from Dripping Springs. Good morning.
Yes, hi. Unfortunately, I come from a family who my father was bipolar, is bipolar, now has schizophrenia with it. My nephew, unfortunately, inherited it as well. There is plenty of help out there for people to get diagnosed, but a lot of these people who have these illnesses, particularly schizophrenics, decide that and this is what Robin Williams was, decide that they don't need to take the medication anymore. He had plenty of help. Believe me, I read up on him. He had access to it. He would be institutionalized from time to time. He was taking medication, but he would take himself off meds. My father's done the same thing. They're adults. You cannot force them, and then they end up, in deep depression. They commit suicide, or if you catch them in time, then they agree to be institutionalized, then you can get them in there and get some help. But this is a very complicated subject.
Yeah, but you make it sound easy, though.
Well, it's not easy. Believe me, the families have such a difficult time.
Yeah.
Because once these people turn 18 years old, you can't, they're adults.
Yeah, and we know what happens to those folks. They typically become part of our homeless community eventually. Yeah. But to say that there's plenty of help out there for your teenager that's going through mental health issues, I'm sorry. I strongly disagree with that. There is not plenty. It is very difficult to find a child psychiatrist, therapist, or anybody to meet with your child. It's very difficult because there's just not enough. The waiting list is incredible. The expense is incredible.
They're booked.
And a lot of times insurance doesn't pay for it. We could open up the phones and take call after call after call from moms and dads who are currently dealing with the mental health crisis of their own child, and it's very difficult just to find the help.
Yeah, mental health and insurance is
getting your child to participate is a little bit different.
Well, that's
another obstacle.
Exactly. I mean, they also have to. Depending on the case, they have to be willing to do the work, too.
This issue came up because Senate Bill 10 was part of Governor Abbott's plan to help, find those youngsters that are experiencing mental health issues in school, public schools, and, help them and get their attention before something turns tragic and they come back and shoot up a school. That was the idea. Because he was the only one talking about mental health issues on this front.
Yes, which is really that's
barely
the key.
got through. It barely got through.
That's the biggest piece of this. That's the biggest piece of the school shooting thing, as far as anybody that mental health. And the previous caller said sometimes it's not mental health, sometimes it's maybe just evil. Well, to me, that's a mental health issue as well.
Are you into sports memorabilia? Do you have anything cool? You got anything around the house that's
sports memorabilia?
Being in this business, we often, we acquire things.
We do acquire things, but I'm trying to think. I have a lot of space-related memorabilia.
What you got?
A bunch of space food. I have a piece of the lunar module.
You also have my sand from the moon.
Yeah, I've got your moon dust, which I keep forgetting to bring. But no, sports memorabilia. No, I don't believe I do.
Nothing.
Why do you ask? Well,
there's a piece of sports memorabilia that's set a record at an auction.
It's been on his wrist for over half a century now. Golf legend Jack Nicklaus's gold Rolex is set to go under the hammer, and it may end up being one of the most expensive pieces of sports memorabilia ever sold. The Oyster Perpetual Day-Date Rolex, starting 1967, is seen in nearly every trophy-hoisting photo of Nicklaus, who says it was his first watch. It's on display this week at the Memorial Tournament in Ohio, then on a world tour before the auction in New York in December. All funds go to the Nicklaus Children's Healthcare Foundation. Lillian Wu, Fox News.
There you go. Baseball jersey worn by Babe Ruth sold for $4.4 million back in 2012. That's a record for any sports memorabilia.
Yeah.
I got a couple of baseball gloves and balls signed by Nolan Ryan.
Do you really?
Got a few baseball things autographed by players. A lot of musicians. Van Halen. I got a couple of album covers of Kiss signed by all the band.
Right.
All the Van Halen, the original Van Halen.
Did they sign it for you?
Yeah.
I mean, you were standing in front of them?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm in radio. I've been in radio for a few years.
Huh.
So I get to meet people like that.
Huh. Wow.
What kind of autographs do you have?
Well, I was thinking. I do have Chris Everett's autograph.
Who? Chris Everett.
Chris Everett. Yeah.
Male or female? Chris or Christy? Which Everett?
Chris.
Which one?
The female tennis, one of the greatest tennis players of all time.
Well, there's a guy that has a similar name.
Is there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No. Well, this is.
I'm just trying to figure out which athlete you got.
And I do have a Billie Jean King autograph as well. Come to think of it, so I guess I do have some.
You got like an LBGT wing.
I do,
autographs
man.
from Billy at the prior compound.
I'm working on an Navratilova, and I'll have it.
That's called a hat trick. You got who do you got?
Chris Everett. Billie Jean King.
And you're trying to get who? Martina
Navratilova.
That'd be a hat trick.
Maybe
right there, man.
Renee Richards, if you remember. Renee Richards was formerly a man, tennis player.
Any autograph you want?
Autograph. People don't really go for autograph. And now it's selfies, right? They'd rather have a selfie than an autograph. I do have a bunch of autographs from astronauts.
Look who you got.
Oh, Armstrong. I've got Aldrin. I've got Collins. I've got Borman.
These people have first names.
I got Lovell.
Uh-huh.
I've got Gene Cernan.
Who?
Gene Cernan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, last man to walk on the moon.
Last man. A lot of people don't know that.
That's right.
They know about the fake moon walk that was filmed in that warehouse in Lubbock.
Right.
But they don't. Nobody knows the last guy.
Or you have.
You're the last guy to walk on
the fake moonwalk where you have the limb that has two different shadows. That one, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I do. I don't know. Some of it's worse. So the one from Chris Everett. She says, "I'm still waiting for you to ask me out."
Really?
As a matter of fact,
wow.
That's what it says. I was 15. My dad was emceeing an event up at Lakeway where she was playing. And most embarrassing moment of my life, maybe, when Dad points at me in the crowd and goes, "See that guy over there? That's my son. He's got a massive crush on you."
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, which I did.
Yeah.
And she sent me a picture that said, "I'm still waiting for you to ask me out." I think she did want to.
Well, back then you had hair and you looked like David Cassidy.
Yeah, man, come on, I had it going on.
Was that the era when you had the comb in the back pocket with the handle?
Damn right I did.
Damn right
I did.
You were the kind of guy that would Velcro a brush to the dashboard of a Camaro.
Not a Camaro, but a Chevy Citation. Yes.
It is
what a look.
9:41 here on the Todd Don Show.
What a look.
In the world of property tax reform or relief at the state capitol, lawmakers have now put the rollback rate at 3.5% for any city or county to raise your taxes.
Yes.
If they want to go higher, they'll have to ask you for permission. And as you remember, the scare tactics leading into this was, well, we're going to have to cut public safety.
Yeah.
We're going to have to cut fire, police, EMS.
If you have a heart attack, good luck.
Joining
You're on
us
your own.
on the news line from the Austin Police Association, Mr. Ken Cassidy. Police Union. Ken, we'd love to get your reaction. I know you've been in contact with the mayor on this issue. What are your concerns?
Our concerns are right now is that even taxing at the levels that we have been, we haven't been keeping up with the growth. We haven't added officers in years. We continually get beat over the head about sex crimes investigations and other things not being done right. Well, when you have detectives being assigned 30 to 50 cases each, it's kind of hard to get those done. So we're not keeping up with the growth as is, so we're very concerned about it. We have lots of money going towards the homeless, and yet we didn't approve a referendum this last year to do an audit of the city budget, an independent audit. So I want to know exactly where all the money's going before we even start talking about cutting public safety.
That's a good point. You've been, to be honest, you sound like a broken record. We've been short police officers for years. We have a few cadet classes here and there, but it's just not enough to keep up with, one, the growth of the city and attrition, people retiring, that sort of thing. And if the mayor does decide to cut public safety, I don't think you'd be able to catch up at all.
I don't think we would be, and you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. So if we don't hire and we cut the budget, then you're going to have to look at hiring officers overtime to fill those positions to make sure the city's safe. So it's one or the other. We're either going to hire more or we're going to have to pay more overtime. And our officers are already exhausted. A lot of officers are working, anywhere from 60 to 70 hours a week.
Wow.
And that's a lot.
What kind of conversations have you had with the mayor, maybe after this approval of this 3.5 cap or rollback rate? What kind of conversations, what do you think the mayor intends to do after talking to him?
I think they're going to try to do their best not to try to cut public safety. But, we have other issues. We're hiring a homeless czar. We've got a city manager that makes over $350,000 a year. Are you telling me that he can't manage that? Why do we need a homeless czar to manage the homeless issue?
Yeah.
All the burdens falling on the taxpayers. I've visited other cities where they have fantastic partnerships between churches and private business, and they're able to fund a lot of that. So we need to look at other funding options and just make sure all the options are on the table before we start cutting public safety.
Like what? What do you mean other funding options? What are some possibilities?
Well, we got left out of the hot tax, which was a big issue.
That's the hotel motel tax, yep. That's
right. The mayor did not want us involved in that. So there are other possible funding sources, but they're just all those ideas need to be looked at before we start cutting.
It's a good point.
Public safety.
It's a brilliant point about the hotel motel tax helping to pay for some public safety at the very least, because it's typically South by Southwest, ACL, big events, F1 races, where a bunch of visitors come to town, paying a bunch of money in hotels and bars. It would only make sense for the visitors to help foot the bill a little bit.
Yes, and the negative consequences of that is, I'm glad people come to town and have a great time. We're always bragging about how high our receipts are and the money we're bringing in for the sale of alcohol. Who deals with the fallout of that is police, fire, and EMS.
Yeah.
And we should be receiving some of that money because we have to deal with the consequences of people overindulging.
What do you think about this, the increased security measures in our public schools? That kind of overlaps with some of the work that you guys do, keeping schools safe at the Austin School District Police Department. We're going to add more, train some more teachers to possibly carry guns in areas. We're going to, spend a little bit more money in beefing up security measures and dealing with mental health aspects with our kids in public schools. Just your thoughts as a lawman. What do you think?
In the rural areas, I don't have a problem with it. I think we have enough law enforcement, and we have SROs from AISD police that work in our schools. The Austin Police Association is actually working inside the schools right now on a grant that we received working with kids on community-based policing. So we're in the high schools a lot. I totally get it in these rural areas, but in the big cities, I don't see the need for that.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, with this kind of talk, not getting, additional funding, the talk of cuts in public safety, does that send a message to the rank and file, the men and women that put on the uniform?
I think it does. I think if you just look back at our past history over the last 2 years and the consternation and the bitterness that went on during our labor contract and, the wanting to cut public safety first, the officers are not stupid, and you see them talk about it on Facebook publicly. You see them talk in other public forums that they feel like they're not appreciated.
Yeah,
and they are the first ones to look at when you come to cuts. And
it should be the last possible
kind of
resort.
punches morale right in the gut. Ken, I appreciate it, man. We're up against the clock, man. I got to run. Be safe,
guys.
Be safe out there.
Yep.
Ken Cassidy from the Police Union. Hey, you can always follow us in the world of social media at Todd Jeffries on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I started doing some acrylic painting over the weekend. You got to go to my Instagram page at Todd Jeffries.
That was you. You paint. I noticed you posted that. That was your work.
You don't know this, but there's a little artist in me.
Oh,
the Todd and Don Show.